we say goodbye 80s, hello 90s.
Welcome to Blockbuster Video.
Destination, Planet Hollywood.
Party of 5.
Tamagotchi, the original virtual reality pet.
If you weren't there, Friday night in the 90s was a pretty special time. Back when snacks were packed with real chemicals, when time went slower than your average internet connection, and your only real problem was your mum recording over your special episode of Baywatch. Man, I miss it all. I want it back. So hop in your metaphorical DeLoreans and let's take a trip back in time, covering the best decade New Zealand's ever had. So, it's 3 o'clock, you've survived the end of the day, and now it's time to live, man, and live like it's your last night on Earth. Before there were phones, apps, or whatever the hell TikTok is, we had rituals, man. And I don't mean sacred, ancient rituals of sacrificing virgins. I mean more important, long-standing ones, like slapping together a Marmite and cheese sandwich so aggressively salty that it could erode enamel and most metals, and then pairing it with a fruit roll-up so sugary that it will keep dentists employed for decades, and then parking yourself 2 feet from the TV, cross-legged, staring into the sacred portal of afternoon television. Whoa, let's talk about those afternoon shows, man. What was up with that time of having bangers after complete bangers for theme songs? I mean, we lived in the golden era of hiring actual musicians to write the theme songs to some of the most iconic cartoons of the 80s and 90s. Then, we had Jason Gunn guiding young children into tinny houses. Oops. I mean, that's the wrong show. I mean, the Son of a Gun show. We also had back-to-back cookers like Tailspin, Chip and Dale, and Darkwing Duck. Simple times when DuckTales was the closest thing we had to financial advice, and when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles taught us mutant reptiles could fight crime and live off pizza. It was quite aspirational, really. And once our afternoon snacky poos had been devoured, and the cartoons had been absorbed, and your brain had sufficiently melted from all the screen time, there was only one logical next step. You jumped on your rusty BMX, always without a helmet, of course, because, you know, YOLO wasn't a thing back then, and then you met up with your neighbourhood crew. You weren't texting, you weren't DMing, you showed up unannounced, walking straight into your friend's house, yelling, "Do you want to hang out?" Yes, we bloody did. We played war until someone twisted their ankle in a makeshift trench. We played marbles like gambling addicts in seedy Vegas clubs, and we even traded X-Men cards with the intensity of the New York Stock Exchange. Man, that brief after-school window between home time and the streetlights flickering on was pure, unadulterated fun. There was no text messages, no push notifications, no dinner's almost ready on WhatsApp. Your official signal to head home was simple, ancient, and 100% government operated. When the streetlights came on, that was it. Day over. And man, if it was winter, you knew it was going to be one of those special Friday nights. As you rode your bike home, your socks were usually damp, your fingernails were like frozen tallies, but somehow life was perfect. You'd walk through the door, leaving soggy footprints behind you, and bam, there it was, the comforting warmth, the faint smell of old cigarettes, and the smell that could only be described as resting 90s house. Someone's mum was making spaghetti bolognese next door with Wardy's sauce, like she was feeding the entire population of Southland, and your siblings were already arguing over who didn't rewind the VHS tape from last night. All while, you'd kick off your socks, sink into the scratchy couch that was your nan's, and it was your cocoon. No responsibilities, no schedules, maybe just a passive-aggressive reminder from your mum to put away your school bag or she would throw it in the fire. It was just cozy, man, and it was prime-time emotional security. You knew the weekend had officially begun, and your only job now was to exist comfortably until Monday. If Friday night was a religion, then our dinner TV combo was our holy communion. Let's start with the most important question of the evening. What's for dinner? It's fish and chips, of course. Maybe a hot dog and a banana fritter if you're lucky. The chips came wrapped in greasy grey paper and they were hotter than the earth's core. You'd burn your lap holding them on the way home, and then you would spend the rest of the night with blisters and zero regrets. Tomato sauce was a non-negotiable. There was no such thing as sugar-loaded barbecue sauce or fancy aioli garlic relish. We're talking waddies, squeezed straight out of a tomato sauce bottle. It hadn't been replaced since the mid-1980s. And when it was all over, it was TV time. Ah, yeah. TV2's Friday night lineup. The magic portal into a night of controlled chaos and questionable parenting decisions. You know, there's a few standouts that I can remember when it came to the classic 90s TV shows. One of the biggest was The Simpsons. This was the original gateway drug, man. Usually on at about 6 p.m. If your parents were in a charitable mood, you'd be able to switch over the news to watch this animated gem. But if you lived in a home which was religious with keeping up with world events, we were treated to 2 national news stations. And if your mum wasn't home to switch over to Shorty, your dad would usually catch up with the inner thoughts of Paul Holmes. TV shows in the 90s were a mixed bag of wholesome family tales like Home Improvement, Full House, Step by Step, and Roseanne's answer to the Jurassic period. Later, we had action-packed gems like Hercules, which was filmed right here in little old New Zealand. Bonus points if you also watched Xena, Warrior Princess, which, let's be honest, was pretty superior in every way, mostly because it had Lucy Lawless.
Wow.
Before the time when health code warnings were a thing, sugar taxes weren't even invented, and people weren't going around eating nothing but veggies, New Zealand was a bit of a snackle paradise. And we're not just talking any treats, we're talking the full throttle, no apologies, artificially flavoured, tuned down to drop D kind of snacks. These were the undisputed champions of Crispy Town. In the number 1 slot, of course, Biggins, the chip that ate the other chips for lunch. Biggins weren't just a snack, they were a lifestyle choice of the champions. Massively puffed up crisps in varying shapes and sizes, 4 flavours, and my personal favourite, which still haunts my dreams today, Tangy, which had a flavour so powerful it had sex with your tongue and never called it back. Discontinued, probably because they defied the laws of physics and health codes everywhere, but man, goddamn they were majestic. And if you needed something to relieve that burning pain in your gob, you'd pray that your brother didn't eat your last frozen treat you'd been saving for moments like this. Forget traffic lights. Bugger off lemonade. Raspberry, you can hang out. You're pretty cool, man. But cola, man, he was king. Popsicles were simple, sugary, and probably 10% actual battery acid. But they didn't need a fancy name. They just needed to be in your freezer when you needed them most. And if diabetes wasn't obvious enough, you needed something cool and refreshing to wash it all down. Okay, let me be totally clear. If someone told me that bubbly raspberry was still out there in a warehouse somewhere, I would literally beat up a stadium full of children. I would reluctantly sacrifice a litter of kittens. I'd volunteer to be the oil boy at a P. Diddy party. I would go full Indiana Jones and track down every clue, every artifact, until I discovered its magical location.
Then I'd punch through the walls, I'd wrestle vending machines, I'd take out the guards, or stealth like, I'd come through the walls, I'd take out everyone. I'd storm the gates of Cola just to get the answers of where this mystery elixir hides.
This drink tasted like carbonated fever dreams. It was like finding eternal happiness in a bottle. It was like tasting the tears of Jesus. Discontinued because, well, obviously it brings too much joy to people, and that can't be allowed or tolerated by Big Fizzy. The chips, the lollies, the cola. I'll start a petition. I'll start a cult. Seriously, I'll sell a kidney. Let's do it. Let's make snacking dangerous again. Everyone knows that the real danger of Friday night was the late night lineup. There was a slew of dad-centric action-adventure shows out there which graced our small screens on a Friday night during the 90s. Some of the most notable mentions were the mass mulleted wearing hard men like Renegade, the original hard man on a motorbike solving crimes, punching bad guys, always rocking denim on denim, kicking ass with his Native American sidekick. We didn't know what was happening, but he had a Harley and he made denim look cool, so we watched it anyway. And if you're lucky, you might be graced with Walker Texas Ranger. Did you know that since 1940, the year that Chuck Norris was born, roundhouse kick related deaths have increased by 13,000%? And this crime-solving show didn't hold out with roundhouse kicks and staring contests. And if you fell asleep during this, you'd wake up to Chuck Norris kicking your ass in your dreams. But TV in the 90s wasn't all just action, it was also chaotic neutral too. Especially when it was time to settle in and watch the wrestling. Peak 90s WWF and WCW were king. I knew the fights weren't real, but I didn't care. They put on a show, and sometimes there was blood. Sometimes there were 3 cages, and I was there for all of it. The commentary, the over-the-top story, and the occasional hot chick to film my adolescent mind bang. And if somehow you managed to keep your peepers open after hours of ring-slinging madness, you might challenge yourself by seeing how long it takes you to scream while watching the late-night horror. But let's be honest, you were way too tired to get past the title before you were resting your eyes one last time.
Hear about what's hot.
Nothing, and I mean nothing, will jolt you out of a cozy nap faster than a full-volume commercial for hot gossip. Yes, hot gossip. The place for like-minded singles to catch up on the goss. Meet a friend, or hell, even shack up.
Wow.
Way back before Tinder was a thing, we had free phone chat rooms. And this fucking ad came on at about 3 times the volume of any other ad, thrusting you out of your hard-earned slumber. But despite the chaos, the static, and the tracking issues, the ads, and the background hiss from your old CRT TV, it all felt kind of magical. Well, mostly because you'd fall asleep on the couch and somehow wake up in your bedroom the next day. But, you couldn't pause it, you couldn't binge it, you just had to be there, on time, and in the moment. So as the dust settles in the game cartridge, and the last chip is eaten from the bag of life, we can't go back to Friday night. But we can remember it. Maybe, just maybe, with enough help, we can blackmail Bluebird and Tip Top into bringing back some of those legends. So, if you got anything out of this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up down here, or if you hated it, do that too. Leave a comment with all the things that you'd love to see brought back from the 90s. Subscribe to stay up to date with the next episode coming next week. But whatever you do, be kind, rewind.